check out this hot tent.
What's going on? It's Samantha from Lone Crow Adventures, the channel where we talk about all things camping, hiking, and backpacking. Today I'm going to be doing a comprehensive review on the King Camp Torino 2 Canvas Teepee Hot Tent. Let's go. Welcome to the King Camp Torino 2. And this is King Camp's latest canvas teepee hot tent. This gives you a good idea of how much space is in this hot tent. I spent the night in here last night as one person and it was super comfortable. Now I am using a cot. I also have a closed cell foam pad, an air pad, and then my 0-degree sleeping bag. And I was totally warm in here. I do not burn my stove at night when I'm sleeping. I stoke it up once before bed, and when it goes out, it goes out. I use my winter gear to keep warm. The King Camp Torino 2 hot tent is classified as a 2 to 4 person tent, and that's a stretch. If you're planning on using a tent stove, you're only going to be able to sleep 2 people max in this tent, and 1 person really comfortably with gear. I stayed in this tent by myself last night. I wouldn't really recommend that you sleep 2 people in this tent if you're planning on running a stove. It's just too small and there's not enough space. But this makes a great solo overnighter tent, and I had a really fantastic night sleeping in it last night. This is a stove jack that comes with the King Camp Torino 2 hot tent, and this stove jack is pre-cut to this size. But that's a good size. I can use this smaller 2-inch pipe, no problem. But it will accommodate stoves with a pipe up to 3.5 inches in diameter. Although in a tent of this size, you're probably going to want to go with a small or a medium-sized stove. The stove I have in here today is the Deer Family tent stove, and I would classify that as a medium-sized tent stove. Ideally, this is the size stove you're going to use with the King Camp hot tent. The King Camp hot tent has 2 doors, which is really nice. We have an entrance off the front, then we have another entrance off the back. And these zippers actually unzip in a V-shaped pattern up into this mounted point up here, and it can become a canopy that you can utilize longer poles to stake out. I didn't do that this time because you can see it's February, it's frozen, and I don't really want to open up and have a canopy. But I'll show you the poles that King Camp provides so that you can transition this tent into canopy mode. So these are the poles that actually come with the King Camp Torino 2 hot tent. And these poles are great because they have this little nub here that goes right through the grommet to hold up the canopy. It's really nice because a lot of times a hot tent manufacturer will say, oh yeah, it has a canopy, and then they want you to use trekking poles. And in fact, when I came out here, I brought my trekking poles because I thought I might have to use them for holding up the canopy. And I was actually really impressed that King Camp has decided to include additional poles. I mean, finally somebody understands that not everybody wants to carry trekking poles everywhere they go. So this is a nice feature. These are the tent pegs that came with this tent. Now, when I first put this tent up yesterday, it was a little bit cooler, and these hammered in, I thought, no problem. But the ground's frozen, and these aluminum tent pegs just, you know, they just don't work. So if you get this hot tent, these are single-use pegs. Keep that in mind. You're gonna have to buy new ones after your trip if the ground's frozen or if the ground's rocky. What I recommend in the winter is that you go buy some of those long, pole barn nails, and those are made out of like a galvanized steel. They're heavier, but I mean, this is a 12.5 pound hot tent, so who cares? But you can actually hammer those in with the back of your hatchet, and they hammer right down into the ground, and they're not going to bend like these will. So if you're looking for an option that's not going to bend, that is something that you can use over and over again. Get some long, about this long pole barn nails, and that'll work a lot better. The King Camp hot tent has a really nice snow skirt. So if we shovel away under here, you'll see, look at this. nice size snow skirt. And that came in really handy last night because the wind was whipping from this direction, and this is where I was sleeping. So I was able to pile up a bunch of snow right here, and I was able to get a totally windproof seal on this tent for when I was sleeping. I didn't have a draft, I didn't have anything. And I must say, this canvas does a phenomenal job of keeping the cold out. It's almost like it was more insulated than even like a nylon or a polyester tent of the same design. It breathed really well. There was no issues with condensation. I'm really impressed with the material that's on this hot tent. Even though it's heavier, this is going to be my new solo tripping hot tent, guaranteed. I love this hot tent. The mesh inner is pretty nice, and I'll throw some pictures up on the screen of that. I put it in the tent when I first set it up just to kind of check it out, and it was actually really easy to clip in. Once you get the tent put up, you can just go around to all the corners and you can actually reach through the snow skirt on the outside and just clip it in, which is nice. I've had some hot tents where you have to kind of crawl on your hands and knees all the way around to hook it up. So it was really easy to hook up. The mesh insert is definitely big enough if you wanted to sleep 2 people in it. You'd be shoulder to shoulder, and there wouldn't be any room for any gear inside of there, but 2 human bodies with sleep pads and sleep gear could sleep inside of the mesh insert together, as long as they don't mind kind of snuggling together. There's not much space. Now, the other thing that might freak people out is that there's no seam sealing on the inside of this tent. So even on the zipper, on this seam, there's no seam seal. And that's okay because it's canvas. And the whole idea behind canvas is that the weave of the canvas is actually tighter than a water molecule. So a water molecule can't actually get through the canvas. I haven't tested this in the rain. I would probably go ahead and put some type of silicone seam seal, or I don't know if I'd use silicone. You know, something wax. Wax might be a good thing. You have to treat canvas tents differently. I just want to put some wax on these just to help, because the only place that the water is going to come in is at these cotton seams. And honestly, I don't think it's gonna leak because canvas hot tents are weird. It's like if you go outside in a cotton t-shirt and it's raining, you're gonna be soaking wet. But if you go outside and it's raining in a cotton canvas hot tent, you're fine. You don't get wet. I don't know how that works. I guess it's just science, but you know, that's just bizarre. But I don't think this tent's gonna leak. I can't vouch for that 100% because it's February and it snows, it doesn't rain. But I mean, I still like this tent. So how would I rate the King Camp Torino 2 hot tent? This is a really great hot tent. I really like it. I'm actually wanting to give this 5 out of 5 crows. The only thing I don't like about it is that it's a little short. But most hot tents of this size are about this height. So it's just, you have to just embrace the fact you're going to be crawling around on your knees and perpetually bent over for the whole trip. That's kind of what you get when you're looking at hot tents of this particular size, 1 and 2 person hot tents. It really does a great job of insulation. It really does a great job of blocking the wind. It holds the heat really well, and it was really easy to set up. So far, I don't have any complaints about it. I don't know how it performs in the rain. That is the only caveat with that rating. So that rating may change in the future as the shoulder season approaches and I start to use this in some more rainy type conditions. But for winter hot tenting, you can't go wrong with this hot tent. Links in the description below. Check it out. And if you want to find out some more great small little hot tents, I want you to click right over here, and I'll see you on that video.